For us, Courtney. So I think we heard some structure there with the defense secretary in terms of maybe sort of what it was exactly that they brought those generals here to hear. Maybe less so with the president. Tell us your takeaways from President Trump's remarks there.
Yeah, we didn't hear a whole lot beyond an initial endorsement of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's speech there. And what I think is fair to call a real shift in the culture of the military that he laid out today. Now, a lot of the things that he said, the Secretary of Defense said today, we've heard before. So there's sort of his bumper sticker sayings like troops will be fit, not fat. He likes to repeat that there will be no more dudes in drag in the military. But beyond that, he sort of put a little bit more substance behind those sorts of comments and those sorts of phrases, laying out a number of policy changes, including on changes to grooming standards. Again, he's spoken about that in the past, but putting a little bit more specificity today to what that means. And then the standards is one that could impact, frankly, the entire military, Savannah, talking about how he will essentially normalize much of the standards to the male standard that has existed. Now, we've just gotten a hold of some of the memos here. I was just starting to go through them as the president was wrapping up here. But it seems as if that it will depend on the individual job that people have in the military. But across all of the services, depending on the jobs, they will be held to a male standard, and it will be age normalized as well. That's also new. Now, beyond that, we heard a lot of, again, things that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has spoken about many times about eliminating DEI, that is diversity initiatives within the military, eliminating what he repeatedly calls the woke culture, and eliminating political correctness within the military. Some ways that he said he will do that would be reevaluating how the Inspector General is used across the Department of Defense. That is notable given the fact that we are all awaiting an Inspector General review right now that will look into what's become known as Signalgate. That's the Secretary of Defense putting information on Signal earlier this year about an imminent pending military action overseas that potentially put men and women directly in harm's way with that action. That's still awaiting. A couple of other things. He talked about how there will be changes for recruits going forward, repeatedly saying that he would have no more complainers in the military, and that commanders and presumably drill instructors will have the ability now to, quote, put their hands on recruits, as he said, as a way to motivate them, and that hazing will no longer be weaponized, that in fact they will be allowed to haze recruits as well. So, as I said, major cultural changes potentially coming out of the speech today, guys.
Courtney, it's no secret that before he was Secretary Hegseth, he was a critic of women in combat, and the comments today sort of were a reflection of things that he's been saying for years and years, basically saying females who can't meet the same standards as men won't make the cut. I know it's early, but are you hearing initial reaction to some of these policies he discussed, especially when it comes to gender neutral standards? Is this something that people largely support? Is it controversial?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't heard anything directly out of the speech yet, but given how his confirmation process was, where there was a lot of rehashing of his books, where he has very openly written about his opposition to women serving in combat positions, but also right before he was nominated to be the Secretary of Defense by then President-elect Donald Trump, he went on a podcast and spoke very openly about his opposition to women serving in combat positions. And since then, he has also spoken about the need to essentially normalize the standards. But today, he did just that. Now, at this point, look, it remains to be seen exactly how this will impact women serving in the military. There are a lot of women in uniform who can absolutely pass these standards, who can absolutely pass these fitness tests, who already have done so. There are going to be men who will actually be impacted by this as well. But I suspect that we will hear more criticism about how this will more directly impact women, specifically those who serve in some of these combined armed jobs and specifically in some of these combat positions. Remember, they've only been open to women for a number of years, and he has been exceedingly critical of that since that happened.
All right, Courtney Kube, appreciate your reporting.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.